I want to just talk to you a little bit about what happened over the weekend. You know, they call themselves the Resistance. They marched under banners and signs that said no kings, and they chanted about tearing down the powerful and reclaiming democracy for the people. But I want you to stop. After what you've seen this weekend, I want you to stop just for a minute, and I want you to think critically about one thing. If this movement is truly against billionaires and the powerful, why is it funded by billionaires and the powerful? It is no longer hard to dig deep into the so-called no kings movement. And the more you dig, the more you realize this isn't a rebellion. This is strategy. This is not grassroots. This is AstroTurf. You know, when you come with signs that are printed by a labor union, you're pretty clear. The average person didn't do that. They're like, I need to get a labor union to make sure that these are labor union printed signs. It's not happening. So this is AstroTurf. And it's not about dismantling power. This is so important. No kings would make you think, well, they don't want a king. So they wouldn't want somebody to say, you know, COVID, you don't take the jab, you don't work. You don't take the jab, you're fired. You don't take the jab, you don't get to go to the hospital. You would think no kings would mean all of that was wrong, but it doesn't. This is not about dismantling power. This is about rearranging power. So let's start with the money, because in politics, money tells the truth even when people don't. So according to several sources, including Fox News, multiple investigative reports, including Peter Schweizer, George Soros and his Open Society Action Fund granted $3 million to Indivisible. Now, this is one of the primary organizers of the No Kings protest. Okay, so wait a minute. So a billionaire, George Soros, gives money to help fund this against billionaires. But it goes on. Soros's larger network, the Open Society Foundation, gave over $7.6 million to the same operation. So now we're over 10. We're almost at $11 million. But Soros is not alone. If you follow the funding trail, it leads to, what a surprise, the Arabella Network. This is a network that we exposed on my TV show many, many Wednesdays ago, probably about 5 years ago. It's a $1 billion a year dark money empire that launders donations from the uber wealthy donors to grassroots activism. Now you add in the Bill Gates Foundation. You're really against billionaires, and yet you're for the Bill Gates Foundation or the Ford Foundation, or here's my favorite, the Rockefeller Network. Rockefeller? You also have the Tides Foundation and Singham, okay? You have a small club of financial elites that are bankrolling what investigative journalist Peter Schweizer calls Riot Inc. That needs to be known from everyone. There is now this organization funded by billionaires, Riots Inc., and it is the permanent protest industrial complex. Now, this is not just conjecture. This is not opinion. This is now documented fact. IRS filings, annual reports, public statements, they all show the same things. Billionaires are funding the outrage machine. But they were holding signs that said no billionaires. What? Okay, so obvious questions. Why? Why are they doing that? Well, they're just supporting democracy. Wait a minute. George Soros? What? Democracy does not require a $1 billion scaffold of nonprofits and coordinated media campaigns. It doesn't need that, okay? It just needs the truth. It certainly doesn't require hiring data firms and communication specialists, and scripts that will script out the entire protest that'll make it appear as though it's spontaneous, okay? What we're seeing here is not a movement. What you're seeing is a manufactured event. Now, that's not just my opinion. That's now how U.S. intelligence agencies have run regime change operations overseas for decades. go back many moons ago on our Wednesday night special again, and I will show you all of the ins and outs of what's called a color revolution. Color revolutions are something that was done by our government, and this is part of the deep state. That's why people say this is a deep state operation as well, because these tactics were developed by the CIA, and they're called color revolutions. And what they do is they flood the streets with, quote, organic protesters. They control the media narrative. They destabilize the existing system, and then they overthrow that system and install a new one. Okay, so we've done this over. The Arab Spring was not grassroots. The Arab Spring was done by our government along with others, including Facebook. Okay? The same tactics are being deployed here. But here's the catch. When the CIA runs these operations in foreign countries, they rely on young, delusioned activists, okay? The people who actually, what is called traditionally useful idiots. They don't know they're being used, and they have a genuine gripe. Yet the crowds, I don't know if you saw them this weekend, at the No Kings rally, most of these now are white baby boomers. They're retirees who balance checkbooks and that are now waving anti-capitalist placards. So wait, we've got billionaires and baby boomers. Okay. Does that sound like a spontaneous uprising? Especially when, and I'll show you later, the signs from the actual No Kings rallies all over actually have the logos of the corporations, of the labor unions, and the Communist Party. There it is up on the screen if you happen to be watching. The Communist Party is a sponsor, and their logo is up at the rallies. That doesn't seem spontaneous. What it does seem like, and I was happy to see it, is the script is running thin. Okay, the only ones that believe this crap anymore are the aging hippies. The people who have tried to overthrow this government over and over and over again. They want their Marxist utopia. They've wanted it in 1968. They wanted it in 78 and 88, 98, and 2028. Okay? They want the same thing. No matter how many times it has failed in their lifetime, they somehow or another think it's going to work this time, and they won't have to live under it. So this brings me back to the paradox, which is what I started with. Why would the wealthiest people on earth fund a movement that says it's about destroying billionaires and their wealth and their power? Couple of logical answers here. One, they're suicidal. They're self-hating billionaires. Have you ever met a self-hating billionaire? Because I have not met one. Well, they're pretty confident. They like it. They like it a lot, okay? And they generally are a little egotistical. They know more than you do. Okay. So what's left? Well, the billionaires know by creating this, it will make them richer and more powerful. How? Well, first of all, you have to control the narrative. By funding the activism, billionaires shape the issues that you and I talk about all the time. And then they shape the solutions that you accept. You'll notice all of this, global warming stuff, that was all shaped by corporations, billionaires, and people who win in the end, governments. They get more power and more money. And we saw it when the WEF started to do the Great Reset. You had banks and corporations colluding to make sure that if you didn't agree with them, you weren't going to get a loan from the bank. Who does that empower? You or the corporations and the billionaires and the governments who are telling you the way they expect you to live. Okay? So you control the narrative and then come up with the problems and the solutions, and everybody's like, yeah, that's a good one. Okay? And if you make people believe that capitalism is the problem, then you can sell a new system, under a solution. Again, you don't believe this is happening? Explain the Great Reset. Now, you also consolidate power. The regulations that crush the small businesses, they don't hurt the billionaires. They eliminate their competition. Let me give you an example. During COVID, why is it COVID was suddenly non-existent at Home Depot? But if you went to Ace Hardware, you're going to die and you're killing grandma. How is that possible? It's not possible. That's collusion by the powerful, the governments, the industry, and the billionaires eliminating their competition. Activism becomes the battering ram that just is clearing the field and making you so you can't even think straight anymore. And it shifts the blame. So by funding anti-billionaire rhetoric, they direct anger away from them and towards the political enemies of the things they're trying to do. So it's not about hating billionaires at all. It's about hating the right billionaires. It's not an attack on wealth. It's about a hostile takeover of your wealth. What did you learn in 2008? Who got rich? The billionaires and the banks. Who had their money destroyed? You did. They're absolutely for bailouts, just not for you. So this is not about an attack on wealth. This is an attack on your wealth. And the saddest part is most people in the streets, they don't even realize they're pawns in somebody else's chess match. They have no idea what they're doing. I mean, listen to them. They don't have any idea. They actually think this is about Donald Trump. Okay, it might be for you, but it's not for the billionaires. It's about the plan. It's why it's happening all over the world. Donald Trump is not the king of the world. I don't know if you know that. Why is this exact same thing happening in Germany and in France and in London and in Singapore? Why? Because it's not about Donald Trump. It's about taking over the system. And you're told you're fighting against tyranny. You're carrying the banners, but you're carrying the banners of the people who are tightening the chains around your neck. And you don't see it. You scream for no kings, well, while the billionaires are crowning themselves in the boardrooms. You rail against corporate greed while you're marching on behalf of corporate-funded NGOs. You think you're dismantling power, but you're fortifying power. And all of this, by the way, is happening while the networks, these same networks, are lobbying for the policies that erode free speech, weaken individual sovereignty, empower, these supranational organizations that all of these guys sit on top of. Now, think about that. The same people telling you to dismantle the system are the ones writing the blueprint for a new system. Have you been consulted on that system? At some point, we have to start asking the hard questions. And I have some hard questions, and I want you to answer in 60 seconds. First, it's really funny how we learn over time. Just try to negotiate with things. Try to negotiate with pain. You know how that goes, right? You start bargaining. I'll skip the gym today. I'll do the yard tomorrow. You start making little deals just to keep moving. But over time, those deals add up. And the life you're left with is smaller than the one you wanted. Relief Factor was created for people who are done making those deals. It's a daily plan designed to reduce the inflammation that causes pain, using ingredients that work with your body's natural processes, not against them. You don't have to numb it. You don't have to ignore it. You can address it. So you can get back to living life on your own terms. Relief Factor. It has helped thousands of people do just that, to get back to gardening and hiking and working, or just waking up without the thought of, oh, geez, here we go again, another day. Stop negotiating with your pain. Start living without it. It's Relief Factor. Give their 3-week quick start a try for $19.95. Visit relieffactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800, the number 4, relief. 10 seconds and back to critical questions. Okay, so let's start here. If billionaire-funded NGOs are truly about democracy, why is it that they are always aligned with one political party? If they care so deeply about equality, why are they headquartered in the tax shelters that they're in and managed through shell foundations. If the goal is to empower people, why is it that the people always end up with less power and these organizations walk away with more power? Ask yourself this. When was the last time a grassroots movement funded by the world's richest men actually made the world fairer for the average person? What kind of Mother Teresa do you think these people are? And can you give me any example of their other really Mother Teresa-like work? What's happening here is bigger than a protest. It is part of a longer game, one that uses outrage as a tool. Chaos is currency, and the illusion of rebellion as a way to reforge the system. Okay? Because once you convince free people that freedom itself is the problem, they'll beg for a chain. They'll beg for it for their own good. It's for our own good. We need this chain. And that's when the kings, the real kings, step out from behind the curtain. When there's an emergency for your own good, you have to remain inside. You're not an essential worker. You can only shop at Home Depot. That's the sign of a king. So the next time you see a march with a sign screaming "No Kings," remember, kings don't usually, they don't have to wear crowns, okay? Think of the King of England. He's rarely in that crown. Once he's in that crown. Usually kings just sign checks. Sometimes they fund revolutions. Sometimes, and a lot of times lately, they are the ones writing the script for the resistance, for their own power and kingdoms. All right. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot to go through today on this No Kings movement. I mean, Stu, I found it pretty laughable myself.
Yeah, I didn't affect me in any way. Wouldn't even have known about it, honestly, if I didn't pop online. That didn't seem like a giant. It seemed less like a protest and more like a bunch of people wanted to get outside and get together. Like
yes.
we make funny signs.
I mean, it's like I've been putting the puzzle together in the recreation room at the nursing home for several weeks. I thought maybe I'd get out. It was a sunny day. It did kind of feel like that.
Yeah.
There's
obviously the dark part of this that you're talking about, the funding and all these organizations that are real and really trying to do really terrible things.
And the dark side of some of the people who, were dressed up like Charlie Kirk's killer.
Yeah.
Some really dark things that were happening. But for the most part, it really was useful idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't get to numbers like they had, but with people who are actually involved in that movement, right? Like the darkest stuff, the Antifa stuff, the international organization stuff. That's not what's making those protests. There's just a bunch of people there as well that are out for a Saturday afternoon.
Those are the people that are convinced that everything happening in the world is happening, and it's about them and Donald Trump. And I got news for you, gang. It's not.
This is Glenn Beck.
All right, let me tell you about LifeLock. Thieves have gotten lazier. They don't even bother to wear a mask and break into your house anymore. They sit on their couch in their sweatpants, and they steal your identity between bites of pizza rolls, okay? And it's getting worse. In Russia and in China, they have whole businesses. They have huge buildings that people come to the office, and this is what they do. Identity theft doesn't look like the Hollywood heist anymore. It's either a guy named Chang or a guy named Chad typing really fast in his mom's basement. And the only thing standing between, Ivan and your good name is LifeLock. LifeLock monitors your personal information, your credit, your accounts, your digital footprint. And sometimes it looks weird. And they'll let you know faster than anybody else on who's charging tacos to my card in Tulsa all of a sudden. When something happens, LifeLock is there, and they have the restoration team to help clean up the mess. So protect yourself with LifeLock. Save 40% off your first year with the promo code BECK. Call LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock, or LifeLock.com. Promo code BECK. Save 40%, 1-800-LifeLock, or LifeLock.com.
Get every story we talk about every day as part of the free email newsletter. You can get it now at glennbeck.com.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck Program. We're glad you're here. It was a mostly peaceful weekend. There were no cars that were burning that I know of. I mean, I discount Portland and Chicago and parts of New York. But, for the most part, there were a lot of people that were gathering, and it was mostly peaceful. And, you have a right to protest. However, there are some dark sides of this. Here's a protester from over the weekend talking to podcast host Brandy Cruz about his sign. Listen to this. Cut 4. Cut 4, please.
Who are you going to kill?
Nazis.
Who do you define as a Nazi?
What do you mean? It's pretty...
In this context, who's a Nazi?
Stephen Miller's a Nazi.
So you're going to kill Stephen Miller?
If I had the chance, yeah, I would.
I don't know if that's something I'd say on camera, bro.
Yeah, if I had the chance. And then somebody in a Khalifa comes to shut them down and intercept. I mean, it's amazing. This is different. There are two sides of this protest. One, the old people that came out who are just fighting for something that they have fought for since 1968 and has failed over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, communism. And then there were the useful idiots that don't have any idea they're being played. And then there are those like this guy. Or let's try this one. Here's a protester over the weekend, cut 5.
With a shirt that says for Charlie.
Because I advocate for free speech.
Okay, do you have free speech? Wear a shirt that says free speech. Wear a shirt that says promote free debate.
Free press.
Well, you get triggered because it has Charlie on there, right?
Because he was a racist. Because he was a misogynist. And that means that you are too. Because you support him. Get out. Get out of here.
He hated people. Yeah, just
He
calm
hated
it down.
anyone
That wasn't white, that wasn't male,
Okay,
that
stop.
wasn't...
Listen to what's happening. They're saying he's a fascist because he is wearing a T-shirt that says "For Charlie," who he said he advocated for free speech and discussion, and then she just goes absolutely bananas on him.
Yeah.
So that should tell you something. Now, you watch enough of these, and your blood pressure goes up. Mm-hmm. You watch enough of these, and you start to get a little angry. Before the show started today, Nathan, who's on our staff, he said, "Hey," I said, "Who wants to pray today?" And Nathan said, "I've got the scriptures up, so let me just read this scripture." And how appropriate is it? It's from Romans. Now listen to this. Love must be sincere. How much of what we do every day when we talk about politics is sincere, and how much is it about winning? How much of that is sincere? I think she was sincere about her point of view, but was it based in love and logic, or is it based on rage? Hate what is evil and cling to what is good. This is one of the biggest things is if you can't see what Hamas did was evil, or what the guy who killed Charlie did was evil, then I don't know how to relate to you at all, because we're told to hate evil and cling to that which is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself. Think of that. Did that woman love him above herself? No, because she was screaming, "Shut up and get out of here." Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spirit, your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, impatient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. By the way, I'm not reading this for them. I'm reading this for us. I mean, Stu and I had a long conversation before we went on the air today, and we're like, do we live all this? How many of our monologues, how many of the things we say every day, how many times in our life are we hitting this?
Just a reminder, too, you want to do that big anti-hippie monologue coming up. Just wanted to make sure you got to that today.
That's why I'm not doing it now. It might be done in anger. Bless those who persecute you. Bless those who do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Wow. Listen to this one. Do not be proud. the key to all of this is humility. If we are proud, if we are convinced that we have all the answers, we're proud, and we'll never be able to actually do the right things because our lack of humility will stop us. Be willing to associate with people of low position. I've got a lot to say about the progressive movement here on that one, but I'm not going to. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. This is ends justify the means. How many times do you watch something like that and your heart races and you just want to go nuts? And you will, because you think that doing it on Facebook or X or whatever doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference because your response makes somebody else's heart rate rise, and then they want to respond to you, and then it just spirals out of control. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. I love the disclaimers in this one. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge. My dear friends, leave the room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, and I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, and this is the key to this whole thing, you will heap burning coals on his head. And for a long time, I always thought, wow, is the Lord a game player? Is he like, yeah, look what's going to happen, right? Their hair's going to be on fire. That's not what he means. That's not what he means. He means your goodness is going to expose their evil. Your mercy will that guy standing there, he does not get upset. He doesn't call anybody names. He just handles it. And you can see the difference between good and evil, mercy, and vengeance and hatred and cruelty. And when he says it'll heap burning coals on your head, that's your consciousness, your conscience. That is you feeling bad about things because you just saw somebody behave the right way, and that is that fire that burns inside all of us when we're like, geez, that was really wrong of me. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And that's the guilty conscience. And that is the only way, unlike, who was it last week that said, if the guy running for attorney general in Virginia, the only way to make them change, we got to kill him. The only way to make them change is to, cause them pain.
Make them feel personal pain.
Make them feel personal pain. No, this is the way the Lord would say do it. Be good to one another. When they're hating you, be good to them. Treat them with respect. Treat them with mercy. Treat them with kindness. Because the Lord will then make them go, and it's not fast, and it's not easy, and it's not our way, but is that what we're here for? Our way? Because I honestly, up until the last few years, I've always tried since I changed my life and asked for forgiveness and stopped drinking and turn my life around. I've really tried to do his will. But I think there is a level above that, at least for me, that I have not been hitting. And I'm seeing it more and more every day. Everything is an illusion. All of this stuff, all of this argument, all of the stuff that we have, all the stuff that we're fighting for, all of it is an illusion. And all of the things that we watch online and do, it's a drug. And it takes us into places that are not real. It takes us into places where we either feel better about ourselves because we're just numbing ourselves and watching something and just kind of disappearing in the world, or it's It's giving us this illusion to do the things that are not good, whether that is just becoming more and more egotistical or angry or whatever it is. And all of this stuff is really meaningless. The only stuff that really matters is, can we find a way to help people be the people that they were born to be? Can we help people? Because most people still, they don't know why they were born. They don't, and I don't either. But it's our job to figure that out. It's our job to get closer to that every day. And most people don't think they have even a reason to live. That's why people kill themselves. There's no reason for me to live. The world would be better without me. And that's not true. And that's the only thing that is real. And that's why freedom is so important. Because if you don't have the freedom to choose who you are, if you don't have the freedom to make mistakes, if you don't have freedom to choose the right or the wrong path, if you don't have the freedom to feel the punishment of that wrongdoing that you caused, you did the wrong thing, you pay the price. If you don't have the system of freedom that makes you pay that price, you never learn. And so you never find yourself. Nothing changes. It just gets worse and worse. And that's where we are now. And I don't want to live this way anymore. I don't think you do either. I don't want to hate people. I don't want to be afraid of people. I don't mind. I don't care what you believe. I really don't. I really don't. Can't we just raise our families with some basic principles? Don't you just want your kids to be happy and healthy and have a bright future? I know I do. And the way to do that is to give them every opportunity we can. And that's not in stuff. That's teaching them eternal truths. And we're not doing that anymore. And shame on our pulpits, because they're not either. Only 2% of our churches, 2%, are willing to talk about the things that are happening in the world today and tie it to scriptures. 2%. I'll get you the list of those 2% of churches, by the way. We know them. We've gone through them. And Berna has done a recent survey on, is the Bible true? Does it teach eternal truths that apply to today? The next question is, what are those truths that the world is wrestling with today that are talked about in the Bible, and will you talk about them? You ask those questions, only 2% of preachers will actually talk about it. And that then leaves a giant hole, and that's why I'm talking about it, because nobody else will, except for you. You're talking about it, hopefully in your own life. You're looking for it. I'm looking for it. And until we find those preachers that are actually doing it, and we all start going to their churches, we're not on our own. We just have to do it ourselves. It always comes from outside of the church. A revival and an awakening always comes from outside of the church, because the churches always miss it. Back in a minute. Every family has one meal that brings everybody to the table, that one that makes the whole house smell like home. But these days, finding meat that you can trust isn't easy. Half the time, you think it's American beef, but it was raised halfway around the world. That little sticker that says, product of U.S., that's not true. That little flag means nothing. Good Ranchers is changing. Every cut they sell is 100% born, raised, and harvested here in the U.S., so you're supporting American ranchers, American jobs, American values, and you can taste the difference. Steaks, chicken, seafood, all delivered right to your door, vacuum sealed, flash frozen, and ready to turn your dinner into a celebration. You know why it's expensive to make things in America? Because we stopped buying things in America because we didn't think it mattered. We have to save our ranches. By the end of this program, another farm and another American ranch will go out of business. We must turn that around, or we won't have American food. We won't be able to protect ourselves and feed ourselves. So from now and through Thanksgiving, Good Ranchers is asking families to share a meal together every Thursday. Every week, one lucky family will win a free Thanksgiving ham. You just share a photo on your Instagram story, tag @GoodRanchers, and use hashtag #BackToTheTable. You could win that Thanksgiving ham. GoodRanchers.com. GoodRanchers.com. Use the promo code BECK when you subscribe for an additional $40 off plus free meat for life. It's American meat delivered. It's promo code BECK, $40 off plus free meat for life at GoodRanchers.com. Welcome to the table.
You know, our community's like a cozy campfire with trusted friends. That's a hell of a lot better than the raging dumpster fire of mainstream media. Glad to have you. Glenn Beck will be right back.
All right, picture this nightmare. One of these days you sit down at your local bank to refinance your mortgage. You know, people do this stuff all the time. But the lender says there's already a lien on your home, one you've never heard of. Somewhere, someone used your name to hijack your title, and you are left proving, I guess, that you didn't do that. It's going to be very difficult to disprove this, right? It's hard to prove a negative. Criminals can forge your name onto a deed. They can file it with your county. They can suddenly, on paper, own your home. And then when they take out loans against it, they can destroy your credit. They can leave you fighting for months or even years to prove that you still own what's already yours. That's where Home Title Lock comes in. This is a company that monitors your home's title 24/7 with the same kind of technology banks use to protect your accounts. If anyone tries to tamper or transfer your title, file fraudulent documents, any of that stuff, Home Title Lock can alert you immediately before the damage is done. And because your home isn't, you're just your biggest investment, it's also your safe place. And it's the place where you raise your children. It's the place you made memories. It's your financial legacy. It's where everything was built. You don't need crowbars anymore to steal from that home. You just need the internet. Protect your home with Home Title Lock. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code is Blaze. HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code is Blaze. It's interesting how you applied that scripture to a real world situation there, and that interaction between the guy and the crazy woman with the bright orange hair. Yeah. And that, like, you have, I think a lot of times, and I feel this way sometimes, if you don't get in people's face and fight back and get angry, it feels like you're rolling over. Like, we're going to lose if we do that. If we don't get, if we don't use their tactics, we're going to lose. Yeah. Well, I think you look at that interaction and you see who won that interaction. The calm guy who sat there and with a smile on his face talked about what he believed. He didn't get. He wasn't the person screaming.
Because it usually ends the same way. Get out of here. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you start screaming that, you're like, okay, I don't want to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. No American, either side, no American wants to be a part of that. I mean, this is what Martin Luther King knew. Mm-hmm. Put good against bad, good against evil, and people will always choose good. So just do what that scripture tells us to do. Live our lives that way, and you win. May not feel good in the moment, but that's not what it's about. Is it?
This is Glenn Beck.